Welcome to the CQN podcast, a Celtic State of Mind. My name's Paul John Dykes and I'm joined by Kevin Graham. And today we have a very special guest in Lisbon Lion, Jim Craig. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much indeed.
Now, Jim, last week we spoke to documentary director John McClaverty, who made a movie called Glasgow 1967. You featured prominently in that, and you attended an award ceremony a week ago or so. Could you tell me a wee bit more about that?
Well, it was an excellent night, and it got off to a perfect start for me because my wife and I had stayed overnight. I mean, we live in Perthshire, so it was a long journey back after an event like that. And we stayed overnight in a hotel in the centre of Glasgow and got a taxi down to the Radisson Blu, which was hosting it. And when I got there, the taxi driver, who had not said a single word to me since I mentioned that we wanted to go to the Radisson Blu Hotel, turned around and said, no, Lisbon Lions don't pay, and wouldn't charge me at all. So what a wonderful start. I mean, how many taxi drivers in Glasgow are going to do that for you? That was evening off to a wonderful start.
Absolutely.
And from then on, it was great. I mean, nice people, even including Bertie, and the people who made the film, the company, were excellent, and they were really chuffed at picking up the award. And I just felt that everything else had kind of gone for us this summer, because it's been a wonderful year, really. It was my 29th function of the year, and I just thought we would win it. And the people who worked for the company were in two minds because there were some other very good films competing with it, documentaries competing with it, but I just felt that it was our year and we would win.
There was that sense. I spoke to John on the Friday. I know the awards were on Sunday. And he had that attitude that, there was a couple of good other documentaries up against you, but there was that sense that very much like the Magic season in 67, the centenary season, there was that sense that it was going to be our year in many, many different ways this year, Jim, because not only are we celebrating the Lisbon Lions 50th anniversary, we've also had the Invincible treble as well, and the fans have been voted the greatest fans in the world by FIFA. So, I mean, in terms of your own year, could you just give us a breakdown of how much you've enjoyed that as well?
It's been excellent. I mean, I have visited London, Las Vegas, Dublin, and had a good time in each of them. I've met great fans from all over the world at all three of them. I mean, the convention in America is just unbelievable, the numbers that turn up for that. And you go to your bed at night time and they're sitting having a drink, you go up in the morning, they're still at the bar having a drink, and and just wave to you again, where have you been? I say, well, like most sensible folk, I was in my bed, but no, it's been an outstanding year, and I've done things this year that I have never done before. I was asked by the club to go up to Glenlivet, who had donated a bottle of 30-year-old whiskey or something like that to be auctioned on behalf of the foundation. Now, I don't touch whiskey because my dad used to give me toddy as a kid if I was feeling, the sniffle rose, and it put me off it for flaming life. So we sat down for a very nice lunch, and the managing director who's sitting beside me disappeared, and he came back with a bottle of 50-year-old whiskey and two glasses, and he topped mine right up to the top, and my wife was sitting opposite me, and her face was a picture because I realised I was going to have to drink this. He'd going to get it specially, and that was the bravest thing I did all summer. But fortunately it tasted nothing like any other whiskey I've ever tasted. It was absolutely beautiful. So I'm not exactly a convert, but I now try one now and again.
And was that a 50-year-old whiskey?
A 50-year-old whiskey, which was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I noticed that after he poured the glasses, he went away and put it back in wherever cupboard he'd taken it from. So obviously it's only brought out on special occasions.
I mean, the documentary, for me, it was a wee bit different. There was a kind of angle taken in directing that was different from a lot of the other Lisbon material that we've seen, Jim. Kevin, what was your thoughts about the documentary on the Lions?
I've just finished reading a book about 1957, The Old Hampden in the Sun, and that describes how Glasgow was in 1957 and the social change that was happening in Glasgow at that time. And I think the documentary captured that as well. We all know the football side, but we didn't know the people side. We didn't know the way that the players were interviewed, yourself, getting interviewed. Did you get interviewed at your school?
Sure, yeah.
At
yeah
your school.
yeah.
Bertie getting interviewed in Jack and Ellie's and Mary Hull and that.
Yeah.
And that gave it that sort of personal touch, which has maybe been sometimes missing with other things that have been done to celebrate Lisbon. Again, I think the whole of last year, the way that us younger generations, and I'm actually quite glad I can call myself a younger generation here, we feel a greater connection with the Lisbon Lions through the documentary and through the 67 song, and the way that the younger generation have just embraced what yourselves and other Lions done for us. And I do think that the documentary captured that, and it was like a history lesson, and a very, very good history lesson. And it shows football was more than just 11 men kicking a ball. There is maybe not nowadays, but back then it was a time of change. It was 1967, the world was changing, and Celtic changed football that year. But the fact is that you've got 11 men, 12 men, count John Fallon, from Scotland winning a European Cup, guys from Maryhill and places like that winning a European Cup. And it just really hit home to us, us especially the younger generation, how lucky we are that yous were about in 1967, because I can't picture modern day Celtic what yous guys achieved.
Well, mine was a pretty good school, because in my year at that time, we not only had a European Cup winner and myself, but we had probably one of the world's best known entertainers. And Billy Connolly was the same year as me when I was at school. Although he didn't look like that at the end, so I didn't really, I don't remember him or anything like that at all. But he told me once that he was really annoyed with me because he was trying to get in the football team and he couldn't get in because he was a right back and I pinched his place. But it was a very special time. It was quite amazing that we all arrived at Celtic Park at around about the same time. Without Jock Stein, it wouldn't have worked at all. I interviewed him once shortly before he died, and he told me that he had been to see the Real Madrid versus Eintracht Frankfurt match, which I'd been to as well in the schoolboys' enclosure. But he'd gone along to see Di Stefano, and what caught his eye that night was that with the exception of the Real Madrid centre-half, Jesus Santa Maria, everybody else took part in the outfield play. The fullbacks passed and went to pick up the ball again. Midfield players spread the ball around, forward scored goals, came back to help out defenders as well. And he realised that that's how he wanted his team to play. And then when he came to Celtic Park, he had all the makings of that. He had fullbacks, and Gemmell myself could play football and come forward, and he had midfield players, Charlie Gallagher, Bertie Auld and Bobby Murdoch, and he had a plethora of strikers up front, and wingers as well. So everything was there to have a team playing the way he wanted it to play. And but without his hand on a tiller, it still wouldn't have worked.
The thing that has come across quite clearly with myself, Jim, speaking to some of your contemporaries from that era, is that when Jock came in, the changes that he made might seem quite basic now, but it was some things as simple as giving everybody a football at training. Prior to Jock's team, was it really all about drills and fitness and that type of approach?
Well, you must remember I was a part-timer at that time, so at night time all we did was lapping. I started off with 2 laps, 880, then walk a lap, then a 440, 1 lap, walk a lap, then 4 220s, walk the other 220, 8 laps of 100-yard sprints, walk the bends, and then 4 laps of 50-yard sprint, 50-yard walk, 50-yard sprint, 50-yard walk again. And that was it for the evening. And when somebody said, any chance of a ball, you said, no, you get plenty of that on a Saturday. And that was the end of it. Then when Jock came in, it all subtly changed at night time. Apparently during the day there were big changes, but at night time even we noticed a difference. And he would turn up to watch you at night time as well, whereas we never saw the previous manager at all. Jimmy McGraw, he didn't come to part-time training. And I think it's important, the manager does come and meet the guys that are there, because they might be the future. Not everyone made it, but they might be the future. So you may as well find out what they're like early and boost them and keep your eye on them as well.
Did you ever think it was going to be a hindrance, the fact that you were part-time?
No, I was pretty fit guy, really. I'd have actually what happened was that I went up to Celtic Park in my first year at university, and I played for the third team on the basis that I didn't train with them. I trained myself, and I just played on a Saturday. And then I dropped out for 2 years because the studies were getting really tough at that time. And my training consisted of running around Bellahouston Park. If I was feeling pretty good, I would run up to Crossmove for ice rink back. That was 4.5 miles. 2.5 round Bellahouston Park was, but unknown to me, that was great for stamina point of view, you know. So when I eventually went full time, I was one of the strongest there. I was one of the quickest, but I've now got a combination of being strong as well as being the stamina was good, and also the sprinting was quite good as well. And I played against some really good wingers. I mean, unlike, you know, the guys who play nowadays, the fullbacks. When the team sheet was read out, I was only interested in one name, and that was the opposing outside left, because he was the man who made or broke my day, depending on how good he was and how I coped with him, you know. So that was really important. Nowadays, they play as wing-backs, and they don't really have anybody against them, so they're not really tested in that. I mean, but back then, we had some good wingers in Scotland, you know, and I played against some really good ones throughout the world, like Jazic from Red Star, and Capellini from Inter Milan, and Hento at the end of his career, 37 years of age. He was still green lightning, by the way, but I played against all these guys, and they were always there. I had to dominate them to begin with before I got a chance to come forward with the ball, and it was hard work.
With regards to your studies, Jim, I remember speaking with George Connelly, and it was George that told me that I should speak to you because you used to keep diaries. And obviously that's led on to what we'll be speaking at some point today about with regards to your book.
Well, can I tell you a great story about George Connelly? When he came to Celtic, well, he was a nice laddie, you know, and when people come out and ask for your autograph, you know, and I noticed he'd signed his George Connelly HVF, and I was trying to figure out higher, but I couldn't figure out two words, V and F. It stood for High Valleyfield. That was where he lived. and that took me a while to work that one out, but and then I felt kind of stupid. You know?
It's not the type behind that you want to boast about, going to High Valleyfield.
That's where my mother's from, so I'll no past comment.
He was a good lad, and it's a shame. I mean, he would be helped nowadays. You know, he obviously had some psychological problems that were not dealt with. I mean, God, you were lucky to be treated for physical problems in those days, far less psychological problems. I mean, our doctor came in after he'd finished his morning surgery, so you'd have to wait behind till 1 o'clock till he got there before he could be seen for injuries and stuff like that, you know. And, you know, it was really, I mean, Joe's case, for instance, Joe McBride, I asked Joe when I was writing some wee articles about him a few years ago, I said, what kind of treatment did you get, Joe? He says, I got x-rays and scans. And I said, no, Joe, you didn't get scans. Not in 1966. You didn't get scans. You didn't have scans in 66. And he said, well, I thought I got them, but I just get x-rays, and they didn't diagnose it. Now, fun enough, I was out walking one day, and 3 doors down from me was an orthopaedic surgeon who was washing his car, and I said to him, I want to ask you something. I explained about Joe McBride. Now, why wouldn't he played his last game on the 28th of December 66. He wasn't operated on until the 2nd of March 67. And that's an astonishing length of time to leave somebody who might need an operation, waiting for an operation. So the surgeon said, well, the answer is, Jim, the obvious answer is that they didn't know what was wrong with him. If there was a problem with the knee and they didn't know what was wrong with him, they would have to open up the knee from one side to the other to see what was wrong with him. Therefore, you've got more healing time to like the whole thing. Whereas, like keyhole surgery, if you know the problem is there, you can go right in at that point, heal it. And in actual fact, Joe seemed to have a cancerous growth behind the knee, which didn't show up on X-ray, because like dental X-rays, decay will only show once it reaches a certain size, and the cancerous growth would be the same, you know. So we were up against all that back then. I mean, Joe McBride would have been the first name on the team sheet, probably.
I was going to ask you that, Jim. You know, that there are a few names that, you know, the Celtic fan base certainly class the Lions as the squad, not just the 11. Yeah. But I mean, I think out of all of them, Joe must have been the one that was the least lucky with regards to not playing.
Yes, because, I mean, he finished playing the 20th of December, he still finished top scorer for a season, you know, so you would automatically have had his name down. So either Stevie or Willie Wallace would not have played in the final. It was for them to think about, isn't it, really? And I wonder which of them wouldn't have played. And I am not answering which one. You think I'm daft, by the way, right? That's like putting my photograph on the dartboard.
I'm just wondering there, because you mentioned about Joe McBride and the medical practices at that time.
Yeah.
Do you think that was a Celtic problem, or would it not have been noticed at any other club in Scotland?
No, I think it was pretty general. It wasn't... sometimes physios were not trained physios. There were guys who'd picked it up as they went along. They maybe had a playing career and they took over, you know, and they picked it up as they went along. And there was more than a few of those, by the way. So I think just things at the time were pretty primitive along that field. I mean, I said to the boss one day, you know, yeah, what can I do for you? And I said, well, I want to chat to you. He said, what about? I said, what about dentistry? He said, what about? I said, well, why don't you get me to check all the teeth for the players? And he said, why? I said, because, you know, if the players have teeth that are decayed, there's possibility of abscesses underneath. An abscess is a poison. The poison spreads through the blood system and it could affect you in another part of your body. And he said, all right. And I said, yeah. And I said, so if I see them all, I'll bring in a mirror and probe for each of them, you know, and get, you know, I'll look at them all and I'll tell you the ones that I think could be doing with seeing a dentist. I don't want to do a treatment myself because it'd be too much, but I mean, I'll tell you which ones would be better off seeing a dentist, you know, but it never transpired, you know, and it's a perfectly logical thing to do, and it would be done in most clubs, you know. There's no point in neglecting an essential part of your body, you know.
I think, I'm not sure if it was yourself, Jim, but someone told me of a practice with the doctor giving the players an injection, and there was a queue of players and he was using the same needle.
Same needle, yes.
Is that yourself?
Yeah, I've heard of that before, yeah. And absolutely primitive, you know. But no, it was not a good time to go down with any illnesses or anything like that at all, you know. Because if you get an ankle injury, what used to happen would be they would fill the bath, an ordinary bath, you know, you have in the house, they'd fill that with hot water, and the trainer would say, put your foot in it. Well, you couldn't put your foot in it because it was too hot, right? So he would take the big hose pipe used for cleaning out the bath and fire that at your ankle until you were crying because the coldness was affecting you, and it would be good. And he would tell you now to put your foot in the water. And you put it in, you never felt anything for a few seconds until the water came through, you know. And that's how the injury was treated. Repeated doses, one and the other. On a Saturday, you might be fit to play, but when you took your sock off, a lot of the skin came with it because you'd burnt the skin at the same time, you know. And it was really, really... The worst was I hadn't been long playing for Celtic, and the ball ricocheted off somebody's boot and hit me right in the face. And you've all been through that where your nose is running, your eyes are watering, you know, and all that kind of stuff, you know. And I'm spitting out bits of blood and everything. The referee said, "You all right, son?" And I said, "I can't see out my left eye." "Aye, you'll have mud in your eye," he says. So, stopped the game. The goalkeeper was about, I can still remember it clearly. Goalkeeper about to take the goal kick. Hold it a minute. Pointed to the bench. Trainer came running on. Young guys get mud in his eye. So, the trainer pulled my upper and lower lids apart, and I hate him to mucking around with my flaming eye. And he bent forward, as I thought, to have a look at it, and he licked the mud off my eyeball, you know. And I love telling that story when somebody's having their dinner because it tends to kind of put them off it, you know. So, but it is absolutely disgusting, by the way, right? Yeah.
Another story.
Sorry, but I'm going to say the final moment was when I nowadays have what Elizabeth calls my irrational moments. She always says it's either mercury poisoning from the dentistry or that trainer licking that mud off you all those years ago.
Who was the trainer, Jim?
I'm not mentioning that at all. Right?
Another one was when you were in Lisbon. And did you share a room with Tommy?
Indeed I did.
And Celtic,
what an experience that was.
I bet. And we should maybe mention Tommy as well, because obviously part of the celebrations this year, part of that whole experience was obviously losing Tommy. I mean, you guys must have been good pals, obviously sharing rooms. The Perrys were the fullbacks. What kind of character was Tommy Gemmell?
Well, it was lucky for me because, you could have got somebody that you didn't particularly get on with, but Tom and I had to, off straight from the beginning, I mean, he could be a bit of a problem sometimes, because we'd arrive in a away hotel and the boss would say, right, gather round, I'll give you your rooms. 331, for instance. John Fallon, Ronnie Simpson, 332, Kearney, that was me, Tam, Kearney, wait here. So I'd stand there with my bag, right, and everybody else would get their room, and then the boss would come across and say, now, keep an eye on him. I want him down for breakfast, lunch and dinner at the right time. I want him on the bus going to train at the right time. I say, boss, this man is 6 months younger than me. You tell him. He says, I'll tell him, but you make sure he's down for breakfast, lunch and dinner. And Tom could tend to go a bit wayward sometimes, but an outstanding talent, a really, really talented player, and a defender as well, not just an attacker. He was back there. Both of us had to be back there in those days, because we played the pivot system round Billy, and that's how we played before a sweeper like John Clark came along. The fullbacks pivoted round the centre half. If the play came down the left-hand side, Tom went towards it, Billy slid across and I came in behind Billy to cover. And if it was my side, the whole thing was reversed. And John Clark just went in there as an extra bonus, So we had to do all that as well. But then the boss would expect us to get forward and join in the attacks. And it was a big stint because, you're 80 yards up the park and 80 yards back. You're going from 18-yard line to 18-yard line. It's a lot of work.
You tell us about the pivot there. So how did Bayfies end up the park in Lisbon?
Well, because by that time, halfway through the second half roughly, we're panicking. We might have been totally in control of the game as regards play and chances, but none of them are going in, and we're still 1 goal down. So at that point, tactics go out the window, and you just want to get forward into a position where you can help. And so he shouldn't have been there. I mean, I was already there, so he shouldn't have been there, And, I mean, it was the most perfect pass in world football. And all he had to do was toe poke it in, as I told him on many an occasion.
So what you're trying to say is Tommy being Tommy, wasn't he following instructions again?
Well, I think I would have done the same because it was really getting to the stage where what can we do? I mean, we'd been told before the game that Sarti might have been a weak link, and he was absolutely outstanding on the day. And, many years later, I don't remember speaking to any of the Italians after that game, because even at the banquet afterwards. But in 2002, I spoke to Giacinto Facchetti when we were at Hampden for the Real Madrid Bayer Leverkusen final, and we didn't been invited, so had Giacinto, and I spoke to him then, and he was saying that they had been expecting trouble before the game because they had heard that both fullbacks came forward, and that wasn't happening in Italy at the time because the Catenaccio system was quite in vogue, and defenders tended to defend. And they'd been told that they could expect the fullbacks would come forward as well. And he said that he's quite curious to know how it worked, because he came forward as well, but that was the kind of special brief he got. It was allowed to come forward. I mean, Burnick, the right back, he stayed most of the time. He didn't come forward at all.
Did you get a feeling on the park that the Italians knew that they were beat when you equalised?
No.
Did you get a feeling that when you see Stevie scoring the second goal, you see the reaction of the Italian, an Inter Milan player, he half-heartedly puts his hand up, then he puts his hand down. And when I recently watched the game back, and they just look absolutely dejected.
I think at that point they did, but not after equaliser, because don't forget, their natural system. I mean, I got a lot of stick for giving away that penalty, but in actual fact, although it wasn't planned at the time, it was ideal for us because it meant they retreated, because that was their style of play, was score a goal and we'll go back and defend it. So I gave them the opportunity to do that. I mean, that meant that we had all the ball, and we were outplaying them in terms of possession and football, but, halfway through the second half, we've still not got the goal that matters to pull the game level, far less go on to win. I don't think their heads went down after the equaliser. I think their heads went down after the Stevie's goal. But, no, we get a real boost from equalising. And you could see everybody's spirits perked up a wee bit, because now we're in level terms again. We've got all the play, and now we're going for the winner. Because as Tom Gemmell once said, I could do without another game, by the way. It's boiling this place, you know. and that was pretty true, because it was a tough shift in an afternoon like that. I mean, the game started at 5:30, but it was still pretty warm, you know, and we could do without another one.
You're talking about the heat.
Yeah.
I remember speaking to you before, and you said that it was so hot that some black paint started dripping off your boots that had been...
Oh, that's true. I mean, nearly
what was the story behind that?
Yeah, nearly Mochan had come in. You know, you go to bed for a few hours before the game, and suddenly the door opened, and nearly Mochan went in and said to me, "You're a bloody nuisance." And I'm lying in my bed, you know, and I'm thinking to myself, you know that way somebody accuses you, you start running through your mind if you've done anything. And I'm thinking, well, I don't ever do anything. Why am I a nuisance? Well, I said, we've just signed a contract with Adidas to wear boots for a game, and you're the only one in the team that wears Puma. So I've got to, where are your boots, by the way? I said, they're over there. He said, well, I've got to take them away, and I've got to find some black paint. I've got to paint out that white flash along the side. Then I've got to find some white paint. I've got to paint in 3 white stripes down each side. He says, you're a bloody nuisance, you know. And I was lying in my bed thinking to myself, I wonder if Inter are having this problem in their hotel or anything like that. And, you know, it's going to cost me, I might be deprived of a fortune. And if I remember correctly, it was something like 30 quid we got for wearing the boots, you know. It's only worth your while. But all during the game, when I glanced down, I could see the white flash begin to appear again. And I thought, I might not get my money, you know. I might have to work the rest of my life instead of getting my money. And in the end, the money was about 30 quid, you know. It really wasn't
This might be a question for you, Paul. Were the kits made by Adidas, or was it just the boots?
Umbro kits, yeah. They actually had a stamp on the front, but everybody used to wear the shirt, tucked in. But there was a wee Umbro yellow stamp, bottom left of the shirt.
So that explains the picture by Jock Stein coming off the plane with the Adidas holdo. I always wondered why he had an Adidas holdo.
Aye, so it must have just been for the boots, etc.
Their strip, by the way, was cashmere.
Heavy.
Oh, aye, lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And compared to us, which was just cotton, you know, and theirs was something special.
Were you able to swap jerseys? Were you told to keep hold of the Celtic ones?
No, I never get a chance to swap at all. I swapped in '69. I got an AC one, which actually sold many years later. And the money didn't come to us. The money went to some fund or other, and they got about $6,000 for it, which was quite a lot of money back then, you know. And I'd had it in the attic for about 20 years, you know. The moths getting to it, you know.
You mentioned Neely a wee bit earlier. There was obviously a couple of backroom staff members who were ex-players alongside Jock Stein. How important were Sean Fallon and Neely to the backroom, the boot room?
Well, they backed up Jock in every way. And Neely in particular was very good at getting a good atmosphere in the dressing room, as was a guy called Jim Steele, who was a masseur. Now, Steele had learnt his trade in the, I think he was in the RAF or the Army. I think the RAF might be the right one, where he had been a masseur to Freddie Steele, the British boxing heavyweight champion. And he was a great presence in the dressing room. He was always singing light operatic songs, of which he only knew the first words, you know. Come with me, come to the ball. And that was it. He didn't know, la 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 la, you know. And one of my ambitions was to go to the library, which I had to do in those days, and find the words of the whole song for him, you know. But no, he was great at getting a presence beforehand. He also worked really, really hard, because he would massage everybody before the game. And footballers, of course, because you train all the time, your legs are quite muscled, and it would have been hard work for him. And by the time he finished, the sweat was dripping off him. But no, he was a great presence. Sean always there to back up the boss. And of course, Neely had played at the same time as the two of them as well. And they all spoke from the same hymn sheet and were all really good at their job. If you were injured, you know, Neely would come out from you and say, right, let's see you run. So you do a couple of sprints along a touchline, you know, and they say, how you feeling? Feeling okay? Okay, well, you're looking all right when you're running a straight line. Let's see how else you can do it. And he would take this handful of bibs, and they go behind the goals, and he would just throw the bibs in the ground at different bits, right? And they say, okay, top speed all the time, that one, and he'd point to a bib, and you sprint towards it, and he would say, that one over there, you'd have to turn and go to the next one. Of course, that's the difference. It's easy to run a straight line. It's the turning and twisting and going again is the bit that makes life difficult for you, you know. And he would just suddenly say, yes or no, you're out. that was the end of it. Jock took his word for it that he wouldn't play if you hadn't passed the test.
The thing as well, though, Jim, looking at the final particularly, is the level of fitness of the Celtic team back then. I mean, I think even the Italians were surprised at how, coming into the last 10 minutes, you were still going all guns blazing. Yeah. I mean, were you fitter than any other team in Scotland? I know that a lot of the games were won in the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Yes, I would think probably we would certainly have been the equal of any team in Scotland. You know, you couldn't really say we're any fitter than anybody else, but I don't see anybody being any fitter than us. So there may have been one or two others that were as fit as us, you know. But it was a very fit team, and we had runners in a lot of positions. And just fortunately, when it came to Lisbon, everything on the day clicked beautifully, and we got a reward.
Part of that fairy tale as well, going back to what Kevin says, you know, we're brought up watching the films and reading the books. Is the incident in the tunnel before you actually go into the pitch, where obviously some players must have had a bit of nerves. Sure. And all of a sudden, Bertie Auld starts singing the Celtic song.
Well, when I first went to Celtic Park and I started playing for first team, I noticed one or two senior players went into the bathroom area where there were two sinks and a bath, and then a big bath in the corner. And then I noticed there was a wee bottle, a brown bottle, on the window ledge, and I would see the player drinking out of it, and I was saying, what the hell's in there? And I went across and had a sniff at it, and it was brandy. It was to steady their nerves, and there was about 3 or 4 players would take a wee sip just to get themselves settled before the game. And nowadays you might be, I suppose, accused of something, you know, if you did that. But obviously we're all experienced players by that time, but coming out for a European Cup final, it is, you know, a big moment in Emdy's career. And Jimmy Johnson was trying to swap his jersey. He was saying to Facchetti, big man, swap the jersey after the game. Of course, he didn't speak any Italian, and at that time, Giacinto didn't speak any English, so it wasn't getting the message across. And then Bertie just suddenly started singing the Celtic song. It was a kind of inspired move. He was off key to begin with, so he got it better after a few verses. And we all kind of joined in and levelled him up, and it was an inspired move, and it just made us all feel very good.
And what was the reaction of the Inter Milan players?
Well, I think they thought we were mad because they could see from the face that it was nobody else had ever done that to them before. And it was a bit of a surprise.
Sure, it's a grand old team to play for. Sure, it's a grand old team, be damned. When you read its history, it's enough to make your heart grow sad. God bless them, we don't care if we win, lose or draw. Darn the hair we care, because we only know that there's going to be a show, and the Glasgow Celtic will be there. Sure, it's the best darn team in Scotland, and the Fleagers all are grand. We'll support the Celtic as they are the finest in the land. We love them, we'll be there to give the boys a cheer when the league flag flies, and it cheers us up when we know the Scottish Cup is coming home to rest at paradise.
You mentioned Tommy Gemmell and the fact that he might have been up to a bit hijinks, and you guys were travelling all over the place in hotels, etc. I think I read somewhere that Bobby and Jimmy like to go and check out the local record shops, for example. How did it come about that maybe you sat in your room and started documenting what was happening that season?
Well, I didn't do it in my room. I just did it on the plane and the bus and things like that, you know. And I've always kept it. And it's been quite interesting looking back. I mean, some of the stories I couldn't tell on a month of Sundays, but a lot of them I have put in the book. And we did have some wonderful moments. I had a great one where I was, it involved me, by the way, but Murdoch bet me that I wouldn't take a dive off the top of there was kind of wooden barricade, a metal barricade outside the ladies' changing room at Gemmell, which must have been about maybe 10 feet before you hit the water, and he bet me I wouldn't dive off that. Well, it did, because I was going to get into 4 feet of water, but I was going to do what we used to call in those days a gutser, where I was just going to go on flat in my stomach, you know. And I was in mid-air when I heard this, "Who that?" And then I hit the water. And when I came up, Jock was standing there, "You're an idiot!" You know, so, and I get fined £5. It was quite a lot of money back then, you know. And mind you, I got my money off Murdoch, which went a wee bit less than that. But, you know, you're not supposed to do stupid things like that when you're a professional footballer for a game coming up at the weekend, you know.
When you were recording, writing your diaries, did you ever think, these are...
No.
I'm going to look back on these and they're going to record in a completely special time?
No, you don't think of things when you're doing it, you know. You just, you do them and you put them away. And you think, you know, and funny enough, my 4 sons all played rugby. My daughter played first division hockey, and I'd won international among St James, and I told them to do a diary all the time, because you'll, in future years, you will be grateful that you did keep a few notes of things that happened, you know. Especially, I said, you don't need to keep a note of everything, because you can read the papers, you know, for the match details and stuff like that. But if something unusual happens, you know, make a note of that, because that will be interesting in 20, 30 years' time, you know.
It's really different for all the other books that have been written about Lisbon, because it's like a real-time take.
Yeah.
And a lot of the books, all the players speak back, and it's those memories, but your diaries are there. They were written at that time, which gives it a different shine, a real different feel. It's probably going to be one of the best Lisbon books, I think. That's
Well, the only bit I've left out, curious enough, is because it was kind of personal, and I didn't put it in because it was non-football. But when I came back from Lisbon the following night, people say to me, "Is that the biggest day of your life?" And I say, "Well, it was the biggest day of my professional football life." I said, "But you know, I mean, I've had kids, so I mean, their birth and things like that. You got to take all that into account as well." But the biggest day of my life was probably the day after Lisbon, because when I got back to Celtic Park, I met this redhead. I was still married to her 48 years later, and I met her that night at Celtic Park for the first time, and it was God was smiling, you know.
Was that a celebratory get-together, or?
Well, she'd come to pick up her parents,
right,
who had been in Lisbon, and I had seen her before. I'd never spoken to her before, and it was really corny. She said, "Congratulations." I said, "Thank you very much indeed." I said, "What are you doing yourself?" And she said, "Well, I've just finished my second year at university doing French and German, and next year I'm going to France for a year to teach as an assistant." And I said, because I'd qualified in dentistry the previous October, I said, "Well, be sure and get your teeth checked before you go." And she said, "Well, my dentist has just retired." And I said, "Well, I'll look at them for you." And that was how my first date was Elizabeth, was her in the dental chair and me having a look at her teeth. So, and I left that out because I thought it's really bloody soppy, to be quite honest. But in actual fact, it's an amazing tale. And
sit down now. That's an exclusive.
Yes.
We'll take that.
As Kevin said, you've given a fly in the wall, if you like, insight into Lisbon. It's been written about on numerous occasions, Jim, and you yourself have written a couple of books about Celtic in your career. When did you decide that you've got all this material, you were going to edit it down and put it into a book?
Well, this is going to sound terrible, but you know, we've got 4 deceased and we've got 2 unable to do things like that, and I thought, well, I've got this stuff here, I should maybe make use of it and let people know sort of exactly went on, you know. And I thought this might be the time, the 50th anniversary might be the time to do it. I hope I'm around for the 60th, but you never know the way things are going.
With regards to the book, CQN are going to be publishing this in the next couple of weeks in November. And as a publisher, they've published around 20 Celtic books. And the feeling is that this is the finest of all of those, and possibly the finest book written about the Lisbon experience. How are you going to release this book? Are you going to have any kind of event, a launch event, for example?
Well, that's up for discussion with CQN. I'm happy to do anything that they want me to do, apart from taking my clothes off. But I mean, I'll do anything else that they deem suitable for the occasion. You know, I'm not much to look at nowadays, to be quite honest. You know, I silly when the rival Charles Atlas. Do you remember him? You old enough to remember him, John Paul?
Before my time.
Before your time, all right? Okay. Well, he was always standing where his muscles were playing and things like that. You know? So I'm happy to do anything, but you know, you can go anywhere in the world. I was out in Australia. My wife was a sister in Perth, and we went into town. Claire went to work in the morning, and we agreed that we would go in and meet her because she wanted her to meet her colleagues she worked with and all that kind of thing. So we took a bus into town, and she told us how to get to the office. And I'm standing waiting to cross the road, and I'm waiting for the green man to appear on the traffic light. And I'm conscious of the fact there's a guy staring at me from the right-hand side of me, right? And I eventually turned round, and he said, "John Craig." And I thought to myself, this is ridiculous. By the way, I'm in Perth, Australia, you know. I'm not in Perth, Scotland. I'm in Perth, Australia. And here's a guy talking about me and the Lisbon Lions, and, you know, I'm just amazing. And all over the world, wherever we've been. And I've been lucky enough to go through Europe on behalf of, you know, various meetings, various supporters associations across America, Australia, New Zealand. I've got a son in New Zealand, you know, and I've been to a few functions out there as well. It's just amazing the reception you get for doing what we did back now 50 years ago. Absolutely remarkable. And you know, you talk about bringing the tear to your eye, you can see the effect it's having me on just now, you know, having been part of it. It's just absolutely amazing. And it's very sad now. I was in to see Billy the other day, and, you know, I think he recognises me, you know. When I shook hands with him and I gave him a cuddle, you know, I think he reacted a wee bit. But, you know, the poor man's not in the best of health, nor is Stevie, and we've already lost 4 guys, you know, so it just leaves 5 of us. One of them's Australia, so whenever there's a function here, it's up to the 4 of us to keep the name going, turn up and you know, have a presence there. So that's what we try and do, because it's important that the name of the Lisbon Lions is kept in the Celtic fans' psyche and imagination.
I think it will forever be held within every Celtic fan's heart, Jim. I mean, the bond that you have got with your ex-teammates, obviously, you know, 50 years on. When we look back on it, you know, and some of the players I've spoken to, you won the league every season, and that gave you your route into Europe. You know, we're now 50 years later, never done it again, unlikely ever to do it again. At that time, though, what was the sense of, you know, entering a new season? Did you feel that you could do it again, Champions of Europe? Well,
the attitude of Jock was, we'll put that one in the cupboard and we'll go for another one this season. He gave us a talk. I mentioned it in the book, by the way. He gave us a talk, and I can still picture him standing there. You can't always recall everything, but I can still picture Jock standing there. And his words were along the lines of, "You're at the top of the tree, you've reached the top of the tree, and well done, everybody. But because you're at the top of the tree, every time you play this season, that team will want to knock you off your perch at the top of the tree. You might have had a hard time against them last season. This season, they're fired up to meet the European champions, and you can expect trouble from each of them, because they'll be ready to take you on and show that they're as good as the European champions." And in actual fact, the way the next season went, 67, 68, we started well enough, and then we hit the skids a wee bit. And I've never quite worked that out, you know. We had the League Cup section went okay, qualified for the later stages, we're all the way through to the final. And then we played Dynamo Kiev in the European Cup, and we played badly twice. We lost Murdoch over there, an on and off offence, excuse me, and playing with 10 men never helps you at any time. But I've never quite worked out what happened where I mean, if I'm dead honest, we celebrated all summer. I mean, I'd met that girl I mentioned, so I wanted to stay in Glasgow to see her. But it got to the stage where I was nearly the only Lisbon Lion still in Glasgow, because the rest had all gone on holiday. And I was getting asked to go here and go there. And eventually my brother and I pushed off to Ireland, actually to get a bit of peace, to be quite honest, and visit relations over there. When we came back, pre-season training went okay. But I think we ran out of steam a wee bit. Around about October, November, we did badly in the European Cup, went out in the first round. We did the World Club matches against Racing Club. I mean, the one at Hampden, they spat, they stood in your foot, they pulled your jersey, all the things that they do that we didn't do in Scotland. And then we went out there and our goalkeeper Ronnie gets hit in the head by a bottle or something. I think, curious enough, I think it was a catapult. The bottle you would have seen lying about, and I don't think it was a bottle. So I think a catapult hit him, a bolt from a catapult, something like that. Anyway, John Fallon comes on, we get beaten 2-1, we go to the next game, wonderful moment the night before the game. Sean Fallon comes in and says, as we're having dinner, I've just heard a rumour that in order to keep you off your game tomorrow, the Argentinians are threatening to plant women in your rooms. Now, you can imagine an assistant manager coming in and saying that to you, And there was stunned silence. We're kind of staring at each other. Nobody said anything. As soon as Sean went out the room, somebody said, well, boys, I would just like to say that if any of the other you are no interested, I'm in room 735, Absolutely magnificent at the time, But if somebody had heard it, it would have gone down like a lead balloon, And we didn't treat those games any differently. We shouldn't probably have played the third game, but it was nothing to do with us. And we get fined 250 quid. And I explain in the book, you need to buy the book and read it. And I explain in the book why we get fined a lot more than that, in actual fact. Not 250, as the paper said. It was much more than that. But from then on, once we came back, we got back in an even keel again. Up till Christmas, we did well. And then we drew with Rangers on the 2nd of January. But from that point on, we won every other game, 17 games, right through the end of the season, unbeaten, and picked up the league again. And I think that was probably the best run I ever had during the 7 years I was a member of the team that won it. That was an amazing run because we'd overcome all those drawbacks in the first half of the season as if they'd never happened. And I don't remember anything that made the difference or why we were like that. I can only assume that there was some kind of reaction after a Lisbon season where everything went really well. We won every trophy, and then a summer, and then back into training again. And there maybe was a point where, without us realising it, you're bound to go off the boil a wee bit. And that might have been the time. Unfortunately, there was a European Cup in October, and then in November there was the World Club Championship. Because after that we did pick up again. And if that had come later in the season, I think we would have done well in the European Cup, and I think we'd have done well in the World Club Championship. And it's too late to kind of work out what happened, but I just think something psychological happened that we were on a low at that particular point. I'm a great believer in the biorhythmic cycle. You have a physical presence, you have a biological presence, and a psychological presence. And I think if you did, you can trace it by means of your date of birth. You can work out when your low days are. It's actually a very good idea. Because when you look back yourself, you say, I had a bad day there. And if you look up your cycle, you realise that the reason you had a bad day was all three of those were at a low point, And I think if they checked the team for those days, I would think that we were quite low. And that's why we suffered. But it was a remarkable achievement. And I mentioned at the end of the book, I talk about the latter half of the season, although the book is about 67. I do mention from New Year onwards what a remarkable run it was. And, right up there with anything else we did was to come through all that after the bad first half of the season to recover. And apart from a terrible loss to Dunfermline at Parkhead in the first round of the Cup, we won all the rest or drew all the rest, I missed that one, thank God. I was asked to go. I had a slight niggle in my groin, and the boss sent me to see Hearts because we were playing them quite soon. Sorry?
Punishment.
Oh, I don't know. He sent me to see Hearts because we were playing them quite soon, and he sent me through there. So I could believe the score when I heard it for 2-0, at home. And it's quite amazing.
And was it not was it Davy Catanack that maybe made the mistake that playing right back that
I
day?
don't know who made a mistake, but I mean, it was just a shock to get beaten in the first round. I mean, we got out of the European Cup in the first round, now we got out of the Scottish Cup in the first round, but I was against that. We won the League Cup, and we won the league as well. So, I mean, it wasn't exactly a bad season, but in my opinion, that was one of the best runs from Christmas onwards in that season of 67, 68.
I mean, I really did enjoy reading your blogs over the last week or so regarding the World Club Championship. It must have been a bit of a culture shock leaving Scotland to go to South America at that.
Well, it was,
time.
as I mentioned, you know, I had this French priest who came on, Spanish priest who came on, and he didn't speak any English, and I didn't speak any Spanish, so we had pidgin French between the two of us, you know. And he said, you've got one thing in your favour, is you're not playing Boca Juniors. If you were coming out to play Boca Juniors, there would have been no point in you leaving Glasgow, because under no circumstances would they have allowed you to win. Well, after what Racing did, Boca Juniors must be someone else, because Racing had all the black arts, you know, and we suffered because of them. Because we were really naive and innocent guys compared to that, you know. I mean, even if you're going to spit in Scotland, you spend about 30 seconds, you know, working it up in your mouth before you let it rip, you know. But they would just do it out the corner of the mouth and catch you unawares and stuff like that. And you go for a high ball and somebody would tuck your jersey, and we didn't do that in Scotland at all. We would clatter into a full challenge. Referees didn't like that, because we had a Spanish referee at Hampden and we had a Paraguayan referee in Montevideo. And they didn't like the full challenge. That was not what they were expecting. So we get penalised for that. But they would not see the little niggles and pushes and tugs and all that kind of stuff that they were doing. Or they would have accepted it as just part of the game, you know.
There was a rumour that Racing Club wanted to play Celtic again to celebrate the 50th anniversary of them winning the World Club Championship. And if Celtic would have agreed to that, what do you think you would have thought about that?
Well, I was asked to attend a sort of function, not a function, but there was some representatives of Racing Club were coming to Glasgow recently, and I refused to meet them, because what's the point, you know? They were the ones that transgressed. I had nothing to apologise for, I had nothing to... And it would just have seemed wrong for me to try and treat them as though nothing had happened 50 years ago. And, you know, that was the way I felt about it. And in the end, I don't think anybody went to see them.
It's the way a lot of the Celtic fans did feel about it, and especially my generation. We can rhyme off Racing Club, Atletico Madrid, Rapid Vienna as teams that we don't like and we'll never get on with. And other people will go like that to us. Oh, it's in the past, just leave it. And we'll go, well, no, it's not for us. We can't forget.
No. I've got a fourth one, by the way, Barry. You won't know that
was
one.
That the
American tour, man. Oh, God. Game was abandoned.
Italian club, Barry.
Aye. Oh, it was something else, man. Oh, you know.
Did they not go bust recently?
Well, we played Eintracht Frankfurt, and that was a kind of pretty tough game, and we had a banquet afterwards, and they brought in this guy in a wheelchair with his legs sticking out and was in plaster. And somebody said, well, to him, he says, oh, you should see that's Barry. You're playing them next year, absolutely not. And we'd been fighting with the Germans all night and said, wait till you meet this Barry team, you know. So there was a few groin strains going round, but they weren't allowed to get away with it at all, you know. Yeah.
You know, when the blog was going out, Jim, and one of the themes of that was that, as well as the football, you spoke a bit about the topical aspects of the times in terms of what was going on in the world, etc. Is that something that you've carried on into the book?
Yes, sometimes. I found that the hardest bit to write, because I was having to do a really lot of work, because it's got to be interesting. A lot of the time it was, not particularly interesting. So they search the papers of the time and find the right ones, So I've got it in sometimes, but not other times. I mean, the biggest incident was, Donald Campbell was killed and trying to beat the world record, And the thought of a boat going at 300 mile an hour, by the way, is just beggars belief, And, those kind of things. I love the stories about the films that were on in Glasgow at the time, because that took me back a few years. And
I mean,
the number of cinemas was quite amazing. You know.
And what about music? What kind of music do you hear now that takes you back to 67?
Well, I've got one of those Alexas in the house, so I can ask for music of that period, you know, and play things like that, you know. And it was, you know, the Beatles were in the early days and all stuff like that, you know. So it's quite good to hear it all, you know.
Lady Madonna, children at your feet, wonder how you manage to make ends meet. Who finds the money when you pay the rent? Did you think that money was heaven sent? Friday night arrives without a suitcase, Sunday morning creeping like a nun. Monday's child has learned to tie his bootlace. See how they run. Lady Madonna, baby at your breast, wonders how you manage to feed the rest. See how they run. Lady Madonna, lying on the bed, listen to the music playing in your head. Tuesday afternoon is never ending. Wednesday morning papers didn't come. Thursday night your stockings needed mending. See how they run. Lady Madonna, children at your feet, wonder how you manage to make ends
You mentioned your good lady a couple of times, the young redhead as you called her. Your father-in-law was James Farrell,
Yeah.
and you did play a big part or a small part in ousting the old board.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, I was cleaning out the cupboard in the house one day, one of the cupboards, and someone hit me right in the top of the head, and actually it knocked me on my bottom, and I was dizzy for a second or two. And when I glanced across, it was a file, a box file, and when I opened it up, it had details about Celtic inside it, and I don't know where I picked it up from, right? And it had the list of people who had subscribed to shares, right? So I looked through it, and I knew a few names, but what I really noticed was that at that time you had to have 10 shares to have one vote at a Celtic AGM. And there was an enormous number of people with 6 shares, 5 shares, 4 shares, 8 shares, I think, right? So what I did was I started meeting 2 guys who had 5 shares and 7 shares. Between them at 12. If they joined forces, they had one vote, you see, and I did that. And I got a phone call one day from a well-known Celtic personality, and I won't go any further than that. He's not a member of the board. And he said, "You're buying shares?" I said, "Well, no, I'm not buying. I'm putting them." I explained what I was doing. He said, "Well, if you want the money to buy them," he says, "I've got a pal and I will put them up." So we started doing that as well. And that kind of triggered the whole thing off. And then David Lowe came on board as well. And suddenly it all gathered momentum, and we had lawyers and accountants and board, you know, and it all kind of, you know. And Jimmy and I always had a good relationship. He was an amazing guy in many ways, because when we went to South America, he was with the party, although he wasn't my father-in-law at the time, he was just a director, right? And he went a walk on the golf course, and only Jimmy Farrell could have done this. He came back with a guy called Bernardo O'Farrell, you know, and we're in the middle of South America, and he's on the golf course. And at his funeral, I told the other story, which I thought was wonderful about him, was he was never a snappy dresser, and he was colour blind as well, and he was likely to walk down, and he was in New York at the time, and he was walking down Fifth Avenue, and he would have on a pink shirt with green shorts and blue socks and white shoes. You know, he just had no. They would all be the same colour to him. No.
Oh, not with that.
Anyway, he is standing looking across, and there's a big crowd, and there's it's the opening night of a show across Broadway from where he's standing. So he walks across at one point and says to the guy outside who's trying to keep them all in check, "And when did you leave Falkirk?" And the boy says, "You from Falkirk?" And he says, "Aye." "Oh," he says, "I left about 15 years ago," and he's not changed the accent. And half an hour later, and this is true as I'm sitting here, by the way, right? Jimmy Farrell was sitting in the front row of the stalls beside everybody else who is either in a dinner suit or a full dress, and he's in the pink shirt with the green shorts and the blue socks and the white shoes. All because he'd recognised the guy's accent, you know.
You mentioned, Jim, about being able to overcome the two blows the following season after Lisbon, getting knocked out of Europe and knocked out of the Scottish Cup in the first round. How was Jock able to revitalise the team year on year? Because obviously we continued our assault on Europe, semi-finals, quarter-finals and one other final. Didn't spend a lot of money. So what was his kind of methods after the 67 one?
Well, don't forget he had a really bad time in Montevideo because, you know, I think he made the decision to play the third game. Now I'm reading between the lines here because I don't know. But I mean, from all I've read and all I've remembered from the time, I think some directors wanted to pull out, and I think he, being a football man, thought pulling out was the wrong thing to do. Might have been a sensible thing to do in terms of behavioural problems, but it was the wrong thing to do in terms of football. So I think he was the one that carried a lot of the can for playing a third game. And when it all went into a disaster, you know, I'm sure it was a big, big blow to him. But right from the start, when we came back again after it, you know, I mean, we played Airdrie at Broomfield, which was not anybody's favourite ground because it sloped in two directions, and you always got a tough job through there. But we started winning again. We won 2-0 there, and from then on, right up to Christmas, apart from a draw with Dundee United, we won every single game. And then we beat Clyde again on the 1st of January, and then Rangers a draw again on the 2nd of January. From then on, we either drew or won right through to the end of the season again. So I think he just picked himself off the floor, and like all of us had to do. And, you know, the fans were great at a time like that because they would have been disappointed as well. In fact, they'd have been gutted. They had a chance to see their team become champions of the world. You can imagine how that would have felt. They're already European champions. They could have been champions of the world as well. But you'd have been really disappointed too. But they turned out in their thousands wherever we played and pushed us on. And fortunately, we responded. And then the following season, of course, he brought in some extra players, which helped as well. But the players who played the second half of that season, roughly the same as the ones that had taken part in the first half and just dug in. And, you know, actually, I tell what I say it when I'm talking about it myself, we probably deserve a lot of credit for the way we finished the season and deserved a bit of stick maybe for what went wrong in the first half of the season. Although I'm pretty sure that nowadays, if you asked a psychologist or even a psychiatrist the state of the parties at that time, they might have said that, well, you can't go on winning forever. These are good teams you're up against, and you're bound to hit a point where they're on a high and you're not on a high. And I think that's what happened in those two circumstances, the European Cup against Dynamo Kiev and the World Club Championship against Racing Club.
The 50th anniversary celebrations has happened at a time where we are currently on a high, and it feels as though no one will beat us, domestically anyway. Jim, I mean, how impressed have you been with Brendan's approach in coming to Celtic and his belief that he is able to progress in Europe? And do you feel that with the changes that has happened since your day, that the progression in Europe is something that is a possibility for a club from Scotland?
Well, I think he's a very good manager. I think he's done nothing wrong since he came there, and you can't say that about every manager. I think everything has worked for him. He has the problem nowadays of the fact that continental teams, for the most part, buy more quality than we have the capability of buying in Scotland. You know, I mean, there's no doubt that, I mean, Bayern Munich were not particularly good against us in the second game, but there's reasons for that. So it's difficult to do the second leg in these games, but there's no doubt as well that they are a cut above us there. Anderlecht, I don't think so. I think we're the equivalent of Anderlecht, or even better than Anderlecht. So I fully expect us to pick up full points there as well. Now, I think, you know, when it gets to that level, you've got teams that are slightly better than us, and we've got to just accept that, because they can buy better quality players and pump more money into the team. And if you do that, you should have a better team. But I think Brennan has done very well with what we have, and I think everybody's responded to his touch. I've no doubt at all that we'll pick up another championship. Although at the same time, it annoys me that we're not getting as much competition in Scotland as I would like, because it means then we go into Europe and it's too big a step to go up to the level of PSG when we've been winning games against teams that are not in PSG's class. So I would like to see teams do better in Scotland and give us more competition. And I think, you know, I don't know if it will happen, but I would certainly like to see it happen.
Well, Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you about your memories of Lisbon, and thanks very much for all your time today. What we're here to talk about really is your latest book, Right Back to 67, The Lisbon Lion Diary, which is available at the cqnbookstore.com, and every copy purchased from the website will be signed from yourself, Jim. So thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate it.
Thanks very much,
Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.